Be smart. Brush off the online noise. Yeah, you know everything, my uncle said. What do you know about humans then, huh? He stood in front of me and attempted what I assumed to be his most dignified facial expression. I had just told him how stupid I thought he was for thinking that a god, and not vaccines, eradicated polio back in what was, after all, his day. I decided to misunderstand him completely. See, I started expounding on archaeology and paleontology and the like. I remember him stopping me in mid-sentence when I came to evolution. Yes, fine, you really do know everything, he said. But I tell you that you're wrong, plain wrong. You know, standing there, realizing that my own flesh and blood was able to produce a conspiracy uncle, I pondered life and stuff. I mean, it was true, I could have recited numbers on how long ago we think the first actual humans appeared on Earth. But then, what was the point of that? You have Wikipedia in your pocket. Go use that. My uncle would have just told me then too that there was this other story, how it should be taught in science class instead of the quote-unquote rubbish they actually taught. In some ways, I agree with him. There is another story. I find that story much more enlightening than the history archaeologists piece together. Don't get me wrong, what archaeologists do is almost magical to me. It's mind-boggling and utterly awesome, but start with those first humans and go back in time. Here's the trace the way I understand it. We. Other, of course, much more primitive species of human. Humanoids, apes, sort of, mammals, reptiles and all that, all the way to one-celled life. I suspect you probably have made yourself conscious of the fact that without evolution taking its course, my uncle and you wouldn't be here. But I'm in a hurry to get even further back in time, you know? 'Cause the Earth needed to cool down quite a bit before life even had a chance of developing at all. That took quite a while, at least a couple of 100,000 years. Why the Earth was warm, or hot rather to begin with? Well, because of gravity. It all started in one cloud of matter in the outskirts of some random galaxy. The cloud was quite homogeneous, but not perfectly so. In addition, the matter moved around and created little pockets of slightly denser or larger stuff. Deep inside the cloud, there was one spot in particular which just became big. Big enough for gravitation to become a factor, that is. It started attracting more and more stuff to it, and the whole cloud started moving in a somewhat different way, rotating around that spot, which could now safely be called the center of the cloud. It would become the sun. What's weird is that there were other places like that too, though none of them as dense as that sun place there. Those became the planets, or tried to. Not all of them were successful. Anyway, one of those other places is where we now have Earth, and all that stuff moving just made things hot as hell. For those counting, we're now 4.5 billion years back in time. Without the Sun and Earth forming in exactly the way they did, they, and therefore you and me, ain't here, alright? One question. Why was there a cloud of matter to begin with? Explosions. I mean it. Well, kinda, but let's take last things first, shall we? The matter of the solar system was mostly spewed out by a supernova. Or perhaps more than one of those, or maybe I'm completely wrong about that particular factoid. It doesn't really matter, as it were. What does matter is that the matter came here and had the sort of constituents it does, namely not just hydrogen and helium, but also other stuff which is only created in the biggest explosions in the universe, so-called supernovae. That means, and I'll let you just tag along in thought with me now, that without stars, and I mean heavy stars exploding, there wouldn't be any you being in position to be told by a doctor about your iron insufficiency. I'm quite tempted to continue our journey backwards continuously, talking the creation of galaxies now and all that, but I can make my point more easily by jumping to the Big Bang and compare it to ice, of all things. In the beginning, when the universe was condensed into one single point in space and time, the temperature was literally as hot as can be. As the universe expanded, it cooled. But not in the sense of having less energy in it or something. No, it's just like when there's more space, the energy that's there can spread out. There's less of it at any one place, but just as much totally. That meant that the temperature at any one point went down. After a while, it dropped enough for radiation being able to turn into matter. After another while, there was so much matter that gravitation set in, and the matter accumulated into stars, planets, and galaxies. Just like ice, really. When water vapor cools down, it becomes liquid, and liquid becomes ice if the temperature drops even more. Radiation becomes matter when the universe becomes so cool that the matter can be. There may be more than one universe. We don't really know, but if there is more than one, then the others will work differently. They'll have different laws of nature and all that, and you won't be there. You, as in you listening to me now, can only exist if everything, all of it, goes right for you. I mean, this particular universe with its laws and everything does not have to exist for you to exist in now, does it? But it does. It spews out matter in supernovas which combine into that cloud which would become our solar system. That cloud condenses in the way I described with a planet that has water on it at just the right distance from the star. Then, through the long winding process of evolution, your ancestors were the ones that didn't die. 99% of every other type of life did die out. It doesn't get any better than you, is what I'm saying. Which makes some people believe in their particular god or gods of choice. Like my uncle. Well, like my uncle does. That's okay. It doesn't really matter for as long as you understand just how much needed to be in place for you to be you. My uncle doesn't. Okay, full stop now. You've heard the story of the universe before, at least many of you presumably have. Why do I repeat it in this slightly unusual way? In order to answer that, let me ask you another question. Why are we arguing with each other? Evolution dictates that we fight, right? Survival of the fittest and all that. Well, we're at a point where evolution doesn't play that much of a role anymore. I mean, I wear glasses. Think about it this way. Are you really just a lucky coincidence, or is life a consequence of our universe being the way it is? If that is the case, then forget whatever your spiritual alignment is, just believe in reality. And that reality is that we are part of something much, much greater than you can imagine. No, not part of some God's plan or something. You can, and some of you do imagine that already. And for the record, I won't stop you either from doing that. I'm talking about something much bigger though than that. If life is a necessary consequence of our laws of physics and our universe as a whole, then we are part of the very essence of everything. That was a capital E, if you couldn't hear me say it. You and me and my uncle and also that guy who just splashed you with his car. All of us. We fight wars, we fight each other. Seemingly big stuff, seemingly small stuff. At the end of the day, we'll have to find a way to stop fighting. Otherwise, we'll all die. I mean, we have sure seemed like it sometimes, but humans never actually have been that stupid at the end of the day. Think about it. 2 world wars couldn't stop us. The Cold War just ended, didn't it? The world itself just keeps getting more and more developed on the whole. So yeah, it's quite the roundabout way of getting there, but again, why are you arguing?